Welcome to this new video. This is continuing my series of videos looking at new releases from this year. I'm up to May, so I don't think I'll get to the end before I have to put together my top 20 albums for 2024. But let's hit May anyway. We've got possibly two videos, lots of releases in May. So let's get on to the first one of those. So, first one released in May 2024 that I want to look at is called This Could Be Texas, and it's by a UK-based band called English Teacher. They come out of Leeds and Lancashire, respectively, and they were formed in 2020. They consist of vocalist Lily Fontaine, guitarist Lewis Whiting, drummer Douglas Frost, and bassist Nicholas Eden. Now, after this album was released a few months ago, that we had the Mercury Music Prize, which is a very creditable award for up-and-coming talent in the UK. And yeah, English Teacher won it for this release. So they come with quite a good rapport on this. And I have to confess, I've listened to this a number of times, and it's very good. It grows on you. And I'm now going to go quickly through a brief look at the track list. So the opener is called Albatross. It's quite polished rock, this, and there's a neat vocal supporting some jangly piano, and I also like the roll drum, which lasts for about 25 seconds, but certainly impacted me. It builds slowly, this track, and the guitar riff is subtle, not heavy. Track 2 is the world's biggest paving slab. This is a much more punchy, rhythmic track, and for some reason, the style of the music sounded, for me anyway, a little bit like Susie and the Banshees from back in the 80s, without being so gothic, and perhaps a touch few notches down on the loudness. But listen to the vocals, and they certainly gave that message to me. The vocals are a little bit way back in the mix, but I thought I heard Susie anyway. So that's the first couple of tracks. Track 3 is called Broken Biscuits. This has a very complex rhythm throughout, and I hear occasionally early Radiohead in here, without too much of the electronica, however. I also heard some of the rather original guitar style, and that reminded me of one Tom Verlaine, the late Verlaine, out of Television. Some Sonic Youth also crept into my ear for when I listened to this track, but it's quite memorable. Track 4, I'm Not Crying, You're Crying. A cacophony of noise leads to that Susie style that I mentioned earlier. Moving on to track 6, the title track, more than a hint at jazz fusion here, with some classical overtones, which suggests that there should be some interesting albums in the future. Track 8 is R&B. Yeah, there's a Cure type riff that adds to the spoken word before it sort of gets a bit frantic with the guitar blitzing us. And again, incorrect Robert Fripp style guitar playing, which is certainly something that I'm always keen to hear. Track 9's Nearly Daffodils, a tight rhythm here enables the band to add influences from a wide range of sounds, more jazz fusion to be specific, and of course those vocals which still sound like Susie Sue. Moving to track 10 now, The Best Years of Your Life. This has a very booming, expansive rock sound, and they throw in some strings as well. And then my final comment on the closer, You Blissed My Paint. which is also very, very much a standout. My conclusion, really, I've listened to this album about 4 times. I think this band are going to have a great future. Their mix of jazz fusion is definitely a future path for them, I think. And I can hear King Crimson and Black Country New Road in their talents. And I run out of things to say, basically. Very, very good first album. Give it a listen. It could be Texas. And it's by English Teacher. Right, let's move on to the second selection then. This album is called All Born Screaming, and it's by St. Vincent, aka Annie Clark. Now, I'd like to recommend at this point another review site that I find is better than most out there, and it's called Spectrum Pulse. And the guy responsible for the reviews on that, he made a comment about this album, which I want to share with you. He described Clark's vocals as frequently expressing pain and discomfort. So now you know. St. Vincent's last album was Daddy's Home, which was released 3 years ago, and it was in my top 10. I've grown to love this band, and I've also become more and more into her style, which is challenging constantly. You don't get the same 2 albums with Annie Clark. She's an extremely talented musician and writer. And anyway, so that particular album, Daddy's Home, won a Grammy for a Best Alternate Rock Album of the Year. Right, up to date then, this album, The Chaos of Being Alive, reads through the politics, which I heard littered amongst the tracks. She's still well influenced by such those as Portishead, a touch of Nine Inch Nails, and she's always pushing herself to the limit to be more inventive. No copy of old material here, which I mentioned earlier. It's an electronic rock with a mix with indie art, and it's certainly challenging to the listener. But if you want to spend some time listening to this, you will be truly rewarded. So I'm going to have a little snitch now at some of the tracks. So let's have a little look at the track listing on this St. Vincent album. The intro I've just described as very atmospheric, called Hell Is Near. But then things sort of liven up a little bit with Reckless, the booming tribal chant on the top of crashing cymbals caught my ear, and it's has a robotic style rhythm. She sounds like a little bit like a female Peter Graybill does, Annie Clark, and very futuristic in her sound. Broken Man, a terrific pulse-like sound here that tangles with music influenced, I think, by David Byrne, who, of course, she collaborated on an album some time ago, and Peter Graybill, as mentioned before. But also King Crimson sounds. That sort of fusion style is also seeping into this track, which is really a terrifyingly exhilarating, chaotic sound. A critic mentioned that. I saw the seething industrial blues that blends with the rock. And there's a sense of real danger that radiates from Clark's snarling vocals, and the volcanic guitars are certainly impressive. Big Time Nothing. Here we've got a little bit of disco funk, but it has a punch, to be certain. Terrific style rhythm, which has a Herbie Hancock feel to it. And it's also owes a nod to Byrne's old band, Talking Heads. Violent Times This has a swooning sonic orchestral power to it. Very rock edge, of course. And I could go on. I've only given it a couple of listens, but I just wanted to give you a taste. Third selection then is an album called Neo Pill by Cage the Elephant. This is an American band, and I started to hear bits of the Cooks, which is a UK band from a decade back, along with Kurt Vile, who of course was the creator, joint creator of The War on Drugs before he engaged in a very solid solo career. This is the sixth album by Cage the Elephant, and they're first in 5 years, and I actually have that album. But I didn't recall it when I listened to this. But that's sums up really the quantity of music and recalling things. Well, are sort of alien to each other. But now I'm going to have a quick little dip into the track list. So, second track, Rainbow, has a very jaunty beat with touches of synths and seeking a move towards psychedelia with a bit of soul pop, I said. The title track, note the restrained strings and the backing vocals on this one. Track 4, Float into the Sky. I like this one as well. Piano pop, like ballads. But it gives a bit of a leisurely listen to the track. And track 6, it's called Out Loud. The piano ballad here owes a nod to Arctic Monkeys, and I certainly heard Alex Turner style vocals on this. And this will crop up again on track 8, where I continued to hear that style of vocal. This is a jaunty rocker. And then moving through to the 12, Over Your Shoulder, deeply personal topic this touches on, which I'll mention in a minute. The passing of Matt and Brad's father, he's the lead singer, was the influence for this track, and also the reason why there was a lengthy delay between albums. I mentioned 5 years. Its lyric is quite sad and mournful. Here's an example: watching his image ripple pain at a drop. Life moves fast. I don't think I said that very well. Let's do it again. Watching his watching his image ripple past, just a drop. Life moves fast, says Schultz. And as I say, a very somber acoustic guitar behind his vocals. So more about the lead singer, Matt Schultz, then. He did enter a period of mental health decline sometime after the release of the Social Cues album that was the one released 5 years back. That album actually won the Kentucky band its second Grammy for Best Rock Album. But Schultz entered into a dark night surrounding this loss, and he was at rock bottom for a while, but he has recovered. At the time, he was also arrested for a possession of a firearm, and it was all getting rather too much for him. Anyway, after that period, the band reunited, and that's how Neo Pill emerged. He's wrote on this album a lot about the breakdown, and it certainly works. I like this album, and I've listened to it a few times. It cannily synthesizes a variety of alt rock styles, marrying the neo garage rock bounce with washes of psychedelia, and it's got new wave flair to it as well, and throws in the occasional ballad. So give it a listen. I think you will be pleasantly surprised. That's Neon Pill by Cage the Elephant. Fourth selection on this video is an album by Neil Young and Crazy Horse, and it's called, rather graphically, Fucking Up, with those sort of funny, what do we call it, highlights, so that we don't actually know the spelling, F-U-C-K. How trivial. Anyway, this album is basically a relaunch of a live covering of the 1990 album Raggedy Glory. And although it's 33 years on, apparently it took place at a party in 2023. And Young managed to gather together his friends and his band, Crazy Horse. And a quick reminder about them: of course, Billy Talbot on bass and vocals, drums is Ralph Molina and vocals, and also Nils Lofgren appears on this album as well. And I absolutely loved it. It's a real rock cruncher with Young really continuing to deliver at the ripe old age of 78 or whatever he is. Let's have a little look at some of my comments about the tracks. Whilst listening to this album, it reminded me really of those joyous moments where I used to sit in a field with my friend at an open air concert in the 70s and get entertained not just by the music but the substances that were being passed around, and of course this blasting type of rock was very much par for the course from many artists. Anyway, as I said, he's 78 now, and this is a real blast. This the party apparently was in Toronto in November 2023, and we don't know who was having the party, but we've got a record of what the music was like at the party. I've always wondered what it would be like to go to a wedding or a party with a professional musician playing live. And it conjures up a story I read some years back of a young man who was absolutely besotted by the music of Van Morrison, and he was about to get married, and his best man made a personal contact to Van and actually employed him to deliver a set with his band at the reception. Well, mouth waters just thinking about it. I'm now going to have a little dip into the track list for this album, Fucked Up. The thing is about this album, the titles of the songs are different to the titles on Raggedy Glory, but they are in fact the same songs. City Life comes to mind. It's a terrific opener that sets up the set. I particularly like A Chance on Love, which is the closer. It's a 15-minute jam session, and you really get into this band who were extremely tight back in the 70s, and they don't seem to be missing any beats with this. And there's Over and Over, which is called Broken Circle, is another 9-minute sort of rocky, punchy session, and truly worth listening to. There we are. Get to that, hear this Neil Young album. He's still kicking it out at 78. Right, this is, I think, the fifth offering on this video, and I've selected A Dream Is All We Know by the American band The Lemon Twigs. This band come out of Long Island, and I've got a few of their albums but can't say I know them very well. The creation of Brian and Michael Addario, and they debuted on 2016. So they've had a number of albums over the 8 years, described very much as a power pop rock. I'm going to go through a few of the tracks. I was well impressed with this band and kicked myself that I hadn't really shown any respect to previous releases. But that's going to change. All I need now is 48 hours in the day. But let's get on to the tracks. My Golden Years opens up, and this is certainly has a power pop jangle. Those 12-string guitars come across quite succinctly. And there's a Beach boyish type falsetto to the harmony vocals. Next one I want to comment on is A Dream Is All I Know. Here we get some wah-wah guitar and very much 70s soft rock, very light. In the Eyes of the Girl, just noted that this one was produced by Sean Ono Lennon. And If You and I Are Not Wise has a very Birds, BYRDS theme to it. And also hints of Teenage Fan Club. What else have we got? How Can I Love Her More? More Beach Boys references on this one. Ember Days takes on a bossa nova feel with the strings, and it's another personal favourite. And Peppermint Roses, where you can hear clearly the influence of the Fab Four in the melodies here. I should have known right from the start. No comment on that, so I've just mentioned it as a track. These lot are pretty skilled performers and exemplary musicians. This is their fifth album, and I absolutely adored it. So I suggest you get to listen to it. This new one by the Lemon Twigs. I think this is the last one on this video. It's called Pull the Rope, and it's by a band called Ibibio Sound Machine. Now, this band began life in 2014, but it's largely the creation of one Eno Williams, who's the songwriter, the vocalist, and the producer. And she got together in 2014 with a DJ producer to mark their beginning of life as a recording artist. I actually got to listen to them a few years ago when their album Electricity was released, and that's a pretty competent piece of work, it has to be said. What's distinctive about this band is that Williams' origins stem from Nigeria, and so there's a lot of Afro influence to this music, and it also mixes the appropriate genres that reflect that type of rhythmic sound. So I'm going to mention a little bit about a few tracks. I haven't listened to this enough, as is the case with most of these, but let's have a quick rundown on some of the tracks. The opener is the title track, and it weds together post-punk, a go-go, with wave-like funk, and there's horns as well, which are very evident on this track. The vocals by Eno Williams are highly impressive, and you really realise that this is very much her vehicle. And let's move on to track 3, which is called Fire. This definitely has the African influence, and it's very profound with those horns, and it has sort of vibrant percussion and tribal-like vocals. Okay, more horns on track 4 to a shuffling rhythm. It's worth noting that she's also quite political in her writings, particularly trying to educate us all about the needs of the African continent And in track 5, which is called Politically Incorrect, it's very much adds hip hop to funk here. And one critic described it uh, as a gang of 4 bass lines. Don't know what that actually means. Mama Say is track 6, and this is one of the standouts. She sings in both English and Nigerian. It's making those political noises about empowering women here. And the synths are very much Depeche Mode like, but there's a lot of flippant percussion and solid feminine vocals. There's a disco groove about Far Away, and certainly this is an album where you're likely to want to get up and move those hips. That's all I've got to say about it. But I would suggest you get to listen to it. Pull the Rope by the Bebo Sound System, based out of London.